Hey, and welcome back to Impostrix podcast. This is Whitney Lee, your host, and you are getting ready to listen to part 2 of a conversation that I had with Julia Washington, a fellow podcaster and the host of Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous and the Jelly Pops Book Club podcasts. In this conversation, we're talking about the angry Black woman stereotype, and in part 1 of the conversation, we talked about the strong Black woman stereotype. In both of these conversations, we rely on some content that we pulled from Harlem, the Amazon Prime original series TV show that features 4 Black women who are friends who are navigating the complexities of being Black women and dealing with their identities, coming to terms with who they are, their lives, what they want, etc. Harlem was a really great container for us to be able to compare to as we talk about the stereotypes of angry Black women and strong Black women. So I'm really excited for you to hear this second part. If you haven't heard the first part of the episode, I encourage you to go back, find the episode with Julia Washington that says strong Black woman, and start there. Then come here, because we are just going to jump right in to the conversation. Repeat after me. I bring more than diversity. I bring irreplaceable perspectives. Hey friends, my name is Whitney, and I'm the host of Impostrix podcast, the show that validates professionals of color navigating imposter syndrome and racial toxicity in their career. Join us and be validated. You got this. So, okay, we're going to move on to the angry Black woman stereotype, because like I said at the outset, I struggle with going between strong Black women and angry Black women. And strong Black women is, in my opinion, kind of like gold standard. Angry Black woman erases everything. If you turn
Right.
into an angry Black woman, then you
All
are
your hard
pushed
work is
out,
gone.
you are fired, you are ostracized, nobody wants to touch you, nobody wants to deal with you, you have too much emotion.
It's a threat.
Right, it's never justified, it's never about what happened, it's always about, like, my anger is considered part of my personality as
Mhm.
opposed to just, like, being mad. And so you were talking earlier, you were breaking down the scene with,
Angie.
Angie. That might have been one of my favorite maybe my favorite part of the season, like, to that point. And
Mhm.
so Angie does a monologue, and this monologue is like what she wants to say versus what she
Mhm.
actually says. And I found myself just, like, rooting for the what
Yes.
she wants to say, but also struggling with her on the, "But if I say this,
Mhm.
not only have I lost my job, but, like, this is gonna get around, like, there more it's it's bigger than this moment right now."
Yeah.
And so what do I do with that when this shit ain't fair?
Yeah. Especially too because there are characters, Black characters who are assimilating because what are we told? Assimilate to survive, but then we get murdered anyway, right? So it's
Mhm,
like she's also balancing that as well because I part of the rant that I love is that she calls out the 3 characters that tell her like, "Girl, like maybe." And it's like, "No, you all know she is wrong and you're continuing to perpetuate this comfort for whiteness that is never going to allow us to exist in the full breadth we deserve to exist in." And I think Angie in the show Angie and Camille come across that I think more often than the other 2 characters do because Ty deals a lot with the tech industry.
mhm.
And I do want to point out that in this episode, she's on her way to Afrotech, which is like a huge conference and it's very important. It's a huge career move for her because she works in the tech space, which is, not heavily dominated by Black lesbians,
Mhm,
like few and far between. And so what's great about Angie's character is how they let us into that internal dialogue. And it reminds us, or at least it reminds me, that that internal dialogue is real for all of us, right? Regardless of what shade we are, that internal dialogue is real for all of us. Because to your point, the minute we're deemed angry, we're a threat and we're out. And our word has no meaning anymore, which is so gross because Angie's not wrong. That character, Kate, I wrote her name down. I don't know. Is in I'm like, can you tell I can't stand this character? I'm just like,
Right.
this
I feel like you wrote it down just to say her name is not Karen, but it should be.
yes, exactly. Is literally a regular occurrence when you leave your community and walk into a space that is curated by white people. And Angie's begging for allyship from her people
Mhm.
and is being told no. And so now it's not even just white people thinking that I'm angry. It is also now my colleagues who are black thinking that I'm angry, and
Mhm.
the ripple effects of that, which is a layer that is so hard to navigate.
It is, and it comes up so frequently, I think, in professional spaces. And
Mhm.
Camille deals with it
Yes.
as,
Oh,
Whoopi
Camille.
Goldberg takes over for, her department chair. And it's essentially this, Camille is the professor, and she's happy that a Black woman has come in and is going to be her mentor and is eager to learn and all of this stuff. And Whoopi is like hard as shit. Like, Whoopi ain't having none of it. Whoopi does not necessarily even want to associate with her, from what I can tell. Whoopi is not
Mhm.
impressed by this adjunct professor or associate professor who's trying to make a name. And, I think we see this a lot generationally, in the
Yes, that's what I
difference.
wrote down.
Yeah, with particularly Black women, but maybe
Mhm.
I'm Black, I don't know about other people, but, that my generation, millennials, and Gen Z maybe think that none of us should have to put up with this bullshit. Um, and then older generations thinking, but we worked for it, so now you gotta work for it. Like, you still gotta do the thing. There does still need to be Black excellence, and their perspective is the moment you fuck up, and Whoopi
Mhm.
basically said this, like, the moment you fuck up, it's not just that it's on you and that it's on me, but it's also on everybody that comes after us.
Mhm.
And us needing to negotiate these two realities, or these two, like, needing to preserve our job, our role, our status, or whatever, and wanting to be authentic and having to balance those two things. And so, what Angie ultimately does, which I thought was great, is she apologizes, she ain't happy about it, and she removes herself from the situation for that
Yeah.
day so that she
Yeah.
doesn't have to deal with these people. And I thought that that was great. And she is
Mhm.
fighting in her community, in her safe space, in her circle,
Yeah.
to kind of find a little bit more healing and resolution around what she's having to deal with. You were gonna say
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, two things. First point, and then for her to say, "My friend is in the hospital," and then leave the auditorium and see the text that her friend really is in the hospital was a really great break in tension for, like, a writing technique. So it's like, spot on, guys. Well done, everybody. And then two, with Dr. Pruitt, played by Whoopi Goldberg, that speech that she gives is very reminiscent of the generation, is very, not reminiscent, I should say this, feels very true to the generation that had to survive the 60s and move the needle forward. And in some ways, there's moments that I feel like, well, that's not, we don't have to do that. I almost said a
You
cuss
can
word.
guess.
Okay. This is it. We don't have to do that shit anymore. We've moved the needle enough where we don't have to show up in a suit. Like, it's fine. But then there are days where I'm just like, God damn it. Should I have worn a suit today for these people to take me seriously? Like, I'm so annoyed. And so, the clashing of the generations is real. I don't know if you remember, Quincy Jones was very, very critical of the 90s hip hop movement,
Mm.
like to the point where this mogul in the industry wasn't even taken seriously by the 90s generation, because he's coming again from an era of like, they wouldn't put us on the cover of our records. Like, we have to show up in the most upstanding way, and you're ruining it. I mean, I'm paraphrasing based on from all the documentaries I've seen. And he's kind of saying like, you're ruining it by showing up in baggy pants and talking about hoes and doing all this game, all this shit and the drugs and everything. And that clash, I think it still exists in a way. We just don't see it as often. Um, but it's still there. And, Tupac was a freaking poet. He was a masterful writer in his own way. And it's ironic because he dated one of Quincy's daughters. But the point is that existence of we have to show up polished has changed for our generation and the generation behind us. But yet sometimes even society is still saying, well, you still don't look like I should trust you. And it's like, I don't know how more expensive I could get. Like, I'm wearing designer clothing off a runway. Like, calm down, let me have the job. But with Camille specifically, what breaks my heart about that scene between her and Dr. Pruitt is how Dr. Pruitt's not even willing to take the risk to mentor her and guide her into a person who is a change maker. We know the statistics of Black women holding an advanced degree or higher are still single digits. This is an opportunity for two PhD holding women who are Black to come together and become a powerhouse. But because of the differing approaches on how to move their careers forward. And, Camille's a little messy. She's a little messy. Not as messy as Angie, but she's a little messy.
She's just like the rest of us.
She's just like the rest of us. And how wonderful could she bloom if Dr. Pruitt said, I'm going to take the time so that way you can become the level that we need at an Ivy League to survive being Black in this system.
Yeah. What I'll say to that, because I agree that the like I said, generational all the way, and things are changing. But I'll also say that we're still, for me, the tension is my generation, our generation, wanting to make it different
Mm-hmm.
by not caring or being more authentic or whatever and being willing to pay the price, but the price is still being paid. So
Correct.
it's like, and I hear that's what you're saying as well, because it's, for example, one of the episodes that I'm running this month also is on likability of Black women.
Mm.
Dr. Katrina Gibson wrote this article that I came across on LinkedIn around Black women do not owe you likability. And at the
Mhm.
same time, I read somewhere in some chat group, I don't know, somewhere at the end of 2023, as people were going through their performance evaluations, that they were getting marked down for basically not being likable to the eyes of their white supervisor. And so, I've experienced times, you talked about our wardrobe and what we wear, where like I can't unlearn that I need to wear a suit when I'm going like to specific places. But I have friends who are like, no, I'm not wearing a suit. Now I'll wear a blazer, but it's going to be bright pink. And so I've even this past year started wearing, like, I wore a Kelly green suit to court one day,
Love that. Love that for
and
you.
so it's, we are pushing for things to be different. But what that also means for many of us is that we are getting pushed out. We are
Mhm.
experiencing very real consequences. We are getting poor performance reviews. We are getting tone policed. We are being labeled a good employee or a bad employee, or difficult or not difficult, or that girl, or not, and
Mhm.
I think that, I'm of the mindset that we should not have to deal with this,
Yeah.
but obviously it is privilege when we
Mhm.
when we do have the space, when I do have the space to say, well, I just need to leave this work environment and go
Yeah.
find money someplace else.
It's interesting too, Whitney, because it reminds me, I was watching this documentary on HBO. Gosh, the name is forgetting me of the fella who did it. He's Black, married to a white woman. They have mixed children, which is my makeup, right? And one of the couples, and they're in the Bay Area, which is a completely different vibe than like being Black anywhere else. Being mixed anywhere else. I'm just going to say it. I'm not that far from the Bay Area, but they interviewed this couple, Black husband, white wife, and or maybe she wasn't white, she was not Black, and the way she dressed their daughters, the husband was like, no, 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 you can't let them leave the house like that. Like, this is unacceptable. And in me, I was like, oh shit. Like yep, heard all of those. Remember all that.
Mhm.
To this day, well, since the pandemic, I've deconstructed that, but I still hear my grandmother's voice in my head when I leave the house wearing something that isn't polished and put together that says, girl, I cannot believe we do not leave the house like that. Go fix your outfit. And then the husband in the documentary was like, he said, I understand that now to be a trauma response
Mm.
to the culture and the generations before us, passing that down to us because we are not allowed to be messy. We are not allowed to look anything other than the suit, the tie, the stockings, and all the things. And I thought, gosh, is it a trauma response? Immediately schedule an appointment with my therapist. Um, and I mean, if it all signs kind of point to it probably was a trauma response at one point, and now it's trickled down to the younger generations because this is now an expectation.
Right, and these generations are rebelling because we can't live
Mm-hmm.
like this. I mean, we're dying. We are dying in these workplaces. We are dying
Uh-huh.
out in these streets, and I'm not talking about, I've been having conversations recently with other Black women, middle class, attorneys, or even upper class who are dealing with Blackness at work, and us realizing that our fight around racial equity historically hasn't really included the middle class?
No, because the middle class is still fairly new for us, right?
Yeah.
Like my dad's 76. I want to say he's probably the first generation in his family to achieve middle class status.
Ooh, yeah. My parents definitely. Yeah, and
Mhm.
it's like, I feel almost guilt saying this because we're the privileged class. Quinn
Mhm.
was saying it. Quinn was talking about how she wants to be able to, vent to her friends even though she's venting about basically privilege, and
Yeah.
how difficult it is for her to navigate this relationship with her mom who keeps giving her money, but her mom basically thinks poorly of her and blah, 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 blah.
Jasmine
Um,
Guy, brilliant, brilliant performance by Jasmine Guy.
yes. And so I am also struggling with this feeling of like, we need, like, where is the movement? Where are the people who are
Mhm.
advocating for just working Black women?
Mhm.
Like, where is that national is that in the NAACP? Is that in the 100 women of whoever? Is that in, the
Right.
sororities? Like, where is that? Because I do care about people of color living in poverty. I care about people of color living in jails and prisons. I care about people of color with mental health issues. But like, people of color who are working and like breaking barriers in these middle class professions, in these upper class professions, in professions, white
Mhm.
collar, traditionally white, traditionally excluding people of color, like, we're dying.
Yeah.
We are killing ourselves. We are living with anxiety, with depression. We are losing ourselves to be these strong Black women. Um, and when we can't hold it anymore, uh, y- what happens to us?
Yeah, it's like Ty's breakdown saying being strong is so overrated Because it is. It really and truly is. When you think about how much harder it is for Black women to achieve middle class, and then on top of that, an upper echelon of that layer as well, is really, really difficult. So when we see that achievement happening, we want to praise it, but then also that's not reality for everybody.
Right.
And we need to find space. Oh man, you kind of hit me in the gut with that, Whitney, because like I really do feel like, there's those moments in life where it's just like, I'm trying so hard to find excellence and I just am floppy footed and tripping. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not because I can't achieve, it's just there's all these circumstances that are completely out of our control. Like, to your point, like I'm processing.
Yeah. Well, like I'm thinking to
Because
myself, like, I don't even want to try that damn hard.
Cause
Like,
it's like it's like there are moments because my career span, I started working at 18. And again, that also is kind of a luxury point of privilege too, because my dad was very much like, you start, to all of us kids, you start work when you're ready.
mm,
And that wasn't his story. So he did whatever he could to create a new layer for his children so it wasn't as hard for his children. And and then now we're creating this layer where it's not as hard for my son as it was for us, right? Like he's going to graduate college without student loan debt. God, what is that like?
wow.
But my dad worked very hard to ensure that even the next generation had a little less struggle. And there's over the span of my career, there's all these moments that I think about when I've been in professional spaces. I've mostly worked in the government where things have happened. And, my very pushy white friends will be like, go to HR. That is an HR thing. You need to talk to HR. And I'm like, girl, I don't look like you. I can't talk to HR. Like, HR is not designed for me. And then just the complete and total like confusion on their face about like why. Because, and that's part of the problem, right? They see me as one of them. They don't see me for my Blackness, because I literally could walk into a room, never mention that I am from a Black father, and people would just fully accept that I'm Italian, no questions asked. I recognize and understand that. So I've taken on the responsibility of, okay, so I know I can get in the room. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring all my darker sisters with me because I can't with you people.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to shut the door. You open the door for me, I'm bringing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it is one of those things where I'm continuously wondering, like, is this because what in the microaggression happened right now? Like, and it does make it a little bit harder to achieve. And I've been a solo parent, so I don't have the ability to rely on a partner, so that way I can do the floundering and figure out what my next stage is, right? Like when Trevor Noah quit The Daily Show, and Dulce Sloan was like, what do you've got lined up next, Trevor? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I'm just going to figure it out. And she goes, that's the white part of you talking. Because because it's true. Like if my grandparents were alive when I decided to full on lean into my art, I could hear it now. I could hear it is not going to be support. I
Right.
mean, it is, but not really.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Okay. This conversation has been amazing. But how I want to take us out is I had kind of brainstormed for myself, like, what are the things that I do to protect myself against being crushed by these two stereotypes in particular? And so I love to ask you, like, what these things look like for you. So the first one is creating safe spaces to just be. And my question is like what are your spaces? Where is a space that you can just be yourself?
I've definitely been very intentional about building my home to be a safe space.
Mm,
Probably why I'm still single. Because you will not come in my home and make me feel like how I feel when I leave it.
mm,
So that's been huge. And it's very important to me to make sure that anybody who walks across the threshold feels safe, loved, wanted, and supported. Um, the world I live in is colorful, creative, and queer. And so I am determined to always lean into making sure that anybody who falls within that community, within those identifiers, feels safe in my space, because I don't want anyone to feel like there isn't a spot for them. So that's my home is number one. Number two, I started doing reading parties because I love to read and I love to party, but I don't like space created by white men typically. It's not safe for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we focus on the girls, gays, and theys, and that is our primary market. And so it is, I can't claim coining that. I heard it on the internet. I probably heard it on TikTok, and I was like, that is literally who I love spending time with. So yes.
Awesome. Love it.
And it's very female centered, very focused on not just coming together to read, but then also making new friends and building community that way. And those are the two spaces right now that I'm truly finding comfort and joy in. And I'm excited to make the reading party grow. I do charge money because that deters the people who will not make it a fun time.
Awesome. Awesome. Gate that shit.
I mean, sometimes you kind of have to, right? Because like to protect our space, like I had this realization that ever since high school, all the spaces that I felt the most safe in were curated by gay men. And so once I sort of accepted that and then kind of reconfigured how I function, a lot of deconstruction has happened in the last 5 years, Whitney. I'm going to tell you that. So when you have a white parent, there's all kinds of shit that happens in your head that you don't know until something happens. You're like, wait, what? Like, let's work this out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all subconscious, right? Like that unconscious shit is real. And so for me, it was like, I love that I have comfort spaces that were curated by gay men. Now, how do I create a safe space for people like me who maybe walk into a room and go, oh God, everybody here is white.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I'm saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying like once you start decentering whiteness and the male gaze, the world is completely different and a lot more exhausting.
Okay, my next thing that I do is I try and normalize naming my emotions. So
Mm.
when I'm feeling something, I'll just acknowledge that I'm actually feeling that thing. And I may actually communicate it out loud to somebody that, like, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm saddened by this. And matter of fact, I think I said that during this conversation, like just normalizing the fact that I have emotions, the fact that I'm acknowledging the emotions, and the fact that I'm telling you what those emotions are.
Mhm.
Um, do you name your emotions?
I do, and I think it's really important. And for me, that was part of the process of like breaking that generational trauma
Mm.
route, because I realized that by not naming our emotions, we are causing more harm. And I didn't want to continue that on. And that was part of leaning into the fact that, oh, I experience big emotions. I
Mhm. Right, right. You did say
should
that.
probably Yeah, I should probably talk about it in a way that is, because it can be scary for people who do hold back. It can be a little off-putting. So it's that navigation of like, I'm like you said, I'm experiencing this emotion. Either get out of the way or just like sit here with me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, the next one is three-part. It's if you need help, ask for it and then accept it. So the first one is acknowledging that help is needed. That, like, I need help. I need somebody to do something. I need somebody to bring me some groceries. I need to use Instacart today instead of picking out my own groceries. And then I'll just deal with the poor picking of the produce. Um, ask for the help and then
It's a real thing.
accepting the help. Is there one of those that you have more challenge with doing? Identifying needing help, asking, and accepting.
I think for me, It's the asking for the help. And that falls back into but you're so strong, you're independent.
Mhm.
So when I ask for help, it shows that what I used to believe was that it shows there's a crack in the system and I'm not deserving of the life that I've created because I can't do it all.
Mhm.
But I'm absolutely not opposed to accepting help. Like if someone shows up on my doorstep, I'm like, "Yes, come in, help me."
I'm the same way. I will accept it all the time. I think for me, it's the identifying that when I need help, that I
Mm,
actually need help, that I actually need like something needs to change in this situation, whether that's like me doing something different or me asking for somebody to come in and help. And then the final one is take care of me because we talked about with the strong Black women, so much of it is, at least for me, nurturing others and not taking bullshit. And I think sometimes, and even with the angry Black women, like when we get into those spaces of nurturing others, not taking bullshit, and of like being angry, like we consider those things to be how we take care of ourselves. And
right.
so that's not what I mean. What I mean is, how do I fill my cup? Like, how do I experience the joy? How do I make sure that I'm doing a hobby? How do I develop a hobby? Do I have a damn hobby? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you take care of what's one thing that you like to do that is like taking care of Julia?
I love putting my phone on do not disturb, making a hot cup of water. I live in California, so I got a lemon tree in the backyard. It produces lemons all year long. So I go and get me a lemon off the tree, squeeze it into that hot water, curl up with a good book, sit on the couch, put on some jazz, and just read and sit there in isolation until my heart is content.
I love this.
And
Because
it's
you
it
said also your home is your safe space. And I can
Mhm.
just imagine like that's that type of like Hallmark shit. Like when you imagine what self-care looks like that's it.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah, it when I moved into this space, people would come over and be like, "Gosh, it's so cozy." I'm like, "Uh-huh, you feel good?" It's the goal. I'm like, "That is the goal." Because my friend Nikki and I talk about this all the time. She's been on my show a couple times where, we as Black women and ethnically ambiguous women, as I often appear, walk into the world and we face so many things that leave us feeling not great,
Mhm.
whether it's anxiety or tension in our bodies or a headache or what have you. When I cross that threshold, if it is not serving for my healing, it is not welcome. And that
Mm.
includes men.
Love it. Love it. I think mine is also around tea. Like I like teas. And just taking the time to like light a candle or have a scent
Yes.
and to like
Yes.
drink tea. And for some reason when I'm drinking tea, I'm feeling more present. Cause maybe it's because I
Mhm.
feel like I have to try harder to taste tea. I don't know. But like it feels more present to me than when I'm drinking anything else.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, there's
Wow.
something about hot water that just is so, and again, I don't know if it's the Pisces in me and we love water, but like there's something about hot water that just sort of like
Mm,
washes in a way, whether it's, a hot shower or a cup of tea.
mm, mm. Okay, final last question before I ask you where we can find you is, what is your affirming mantra or affirmation, during this time in your life?
At the present, it's girl, it's all an experiment, just hang in.
Okay, I love it. I love it. It's like living in that uncertainty is okay.
Mhm. Yeah, like it's giving myself permission that if something fails, I will not crumble. It's reminding myself that not everything I do is for everybody. It's protecting my peace.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Okay, so where can everybody find you if they are interested in learning more about you, in your art, or in your shows?
I am, excuse me. I'm on Instagram, the Julia Washington. I am there all the time in stories. Please, I love chatting with people. Absolutely can find me. My website for my work is what is it? It's juliawashingtonproductions.com. And a lot of my work is there. And that's also where the parties are, where you can get tickets for the parties if you're local to California. And I'm on TikTok, the Julia Washington. And so that's pretty much everything. I connect. There's no shortage of me on the internet, Whitney. Let's just be real.
Okay. Okay. So find her everywhere. She gets
Yeah, I
around.
mean, yeah, start on Instagram, find the Julia Washington, it'll lead you to everything I do. I also write a monthly column for Jennifer Magazine, and I mostly write about entertainment and books. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Thank you so much for these conversations. I really appreciate your joining me. I had fun.
I had fun too, Whitney. Like now I'm thinking we need you to come onto my show so we can once you finish Harlem and we can do a deep dive discussion.
Okay, we can do that because I was gonna say I got nothing.
No,
I
we
got
talk about
nothing for
Harlem.
media.
We got to talk about Harlem.
We can talk about Harlem. I'll finish Harlem, and then yeah, I would love to do that because
Yeah.
it's packed. Like we could do a whole mini series on like Harlem.
And I can't wait for you to see season 2. Season 2 is phenomenal, and I'm
Oh my
so excited it's coming back for season 3. I can't wait. I'm like, hurry up.
awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me for this conversation. I hope that you got as much out of it as I did. Feel free to continue the conversation with us over on Facebook at the Impostrix Podcast Validating Space. We welcome all, and it's a space for us to validate each other as we work through work, race, and imposter syndrome. You can find out more about me or about the podcast at www.impostrixpodcast.com. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Impostrix Podcast. Until next time, be validated.